Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. So let's talk about some WWE, let's talk about NXT, and let's talk about this bizarre trade between Mandy Rose and Aliyah that's happened between NXT and Monday Night Raw, because we've got some news on Aliyah being called up to the main roster, Mandy Rose going back to NXT, a trade between the two brands and what it means going forward. This all started with Mandy Rose appearing on NXT this week on the USA Network, and now several members of the WWE NXT roster were reportedly surprised to see Mandy Rose make her return on this week's episode of NXT on the USA Network. Now, as I mentioned previously, Rose returned on this week's edition of NXT on USA Network and participated in two segments. Now, it was reported yesterday that there appears to be some form of a roster trade with Mandy Rose going back to NXT, while Aliyah is being called up to Monday Night Raw. Now, this week's episode also saw Aliyah snap and turn on Robert Stone after she and Jessi Kamea failed to defeat Kaden Carter and Casey Catanzaro. Now, in an update, Fightful Select, which of course is Fightful's Patreon service, so be sure to check that out. Now, in an update, Fightful Select, which of course is Fightful's Patreon service, so be sure to check that out. They're reporting that members of the NXT locker room were very surprised to see Mandy Rose be added back to the NXT roster. Now, multiple sources, multiple outlets, and multiple websites, including PW Insider, have indeed confirmed now that Mandy Rose is back for good with NXT. She's no longer part of the main roster. She is back for good on the Black and Gold brand. That is where she is staying. There has been a trade. Now, regarding Aliyah, this main roster call-up for Aliyah has been rumored internally for well over a month. Again, this is a report by Fightful Select. It was said that Aliyah made a really good impression on WWE officials, including the likes of Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, John Laurinaitis, etc., during the scouting trip that was reported last month, where all of these WWE executives and bigwigs came down to the Performance Center. Now, yesterday, the heavy speculation among the wrestlers in the locker room, especially on NXT, was that she is moving up to Raw, whereas Mandy Rose is moving back to NXT. Now, Aliyah first signed with WWE back in March of 2015. She debuted at TakeOver Unstoppable way back when. We're talking like 6 years ago at this point, as a member of Tyler Breeze's entourage for his loss against Finn Balor. Now, Aliyah has worked SmackDown once before. She worked SmackDown on January 3rd, 2017 in a loss to Carmella. She also worked an episode of Main Event back in March of 2020, losing to Natalya. She has been on the losing end of her NXT matches, but hopefully for her, that will change once she gets to Monday Night Raw. Now, there's no word yet on when Aliyah is officially making her Monday Night Raw debut. There's also no discussion as to what's going to happen between Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke going forward, because of course they're a tag team. They've been feuding with the women's tag team champions Natalya and Tamina on Monday Night Raw recently, and I guess that's now dropped and we've got one less tag team in WWE's failing women's tag team division. It's very strange. Now, when going back to this trade that has seemingly taken place between Raw and NXT, it was reported by WrestleVotes yesterday. Yesterday morning this was put out, but it was reported by WrestleVotes that according to them, a source has indicated there has been a trade between the brands as of Tuesday night, with Raw trading Mandy Rose to NXT for Aliyah. Now, as of recording right now, rather, I think Mandy Rose is still listed on Monday Night Raw. That might have changed on the website. Not that that means anything, but we've got a trade. That's what's happened here. And frankly, not wanting to be harsh to Aliyah or anything like that, but I think NXT have got the better side of the deal there. It's just very odd, isn't it? It's very strange. And look, there's no doubt that NXT would probably be looking at things recently. They've lost just 3 of their female stars to SmackDown, whether it's Tegan Nox, Shotzi, no longer Blackheart, but Shotzi, and Toni Storm. I'm assuming once the official said, look, we want Aliyah on Monday Night Raw, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, the writing staff at NXT must have gone, whoa. I know we have a really good women's division here, but you can't just take 4 female superstars and we've got nothing in return. Now, you could argue, well, you've got plenty of stars at that Performance Center. You stockpile talent, right? You're stockpiling talent. You've got plenty of female stars you could bring up to NXT, but maybe that's the case of, maybe it's a damning report on those that are there at the Performance Center right now that nobody's ready. Nobody's ready to fill those spots of Tegan Nox or Shotzi Blackheart or Toni Storm or whoever. And when the officials of Monday Night Raw and the officials of WWE said, look, we want Aliyah in that spot, those in NXT said, look, we need something back. We need something back. And like I said yesterday, we spoke about this yesterday when it comes to Mandy Rose. In my opinion, She's done nothing. I mean, she's done absolutely, apart from fall over at WrestleMania, that is the most memorable thing she has done in the last 12 months, which is so bizarre. I mean, the booking of her, there's so many examples of this, especially over the course of the last year or so when it comes to WWE, of at the time, bookings decisions that were really strange, and everyone at the time went, that's strange, that's weird, that doesn't make any sense. And every single time we as a fan base, or we as fans, we go, yeah, but we'll see what happens, and then nothing happens. It's like when the Iconics split up, everyone at the time goes, that's weird, I wonder what they have planned, and it's nothing. They have nothing planned. Or Zelina Vega and Andrade, they're splitting up, and you go, okay, that's weird, I wonder what they have planned, and it's nothing. Nothing. For some reason, they split people up, or they move people to different brands, and you think, well, they must have something planned. They must, right? Surely they've got something planned. And they don't, or at the time they do, and then nothing happens of it in the end. And it was like that with Mandy Rose last year. She was red hot at the time, especially if you look at her WWE career last year. From the early stages of 2020 to her match to Sonya Deville against Sonya Deville at SummerSlam, she was a featured player on Friday Night SmackDown. She had the Otis storyline, which was over. You had the Sonya Deville storyline, where Sonya Deville, frankly, was the star out of all that. She was the standout star, but Mandy Rose won the match. At SummerSlam, she was the babyface, right? And Sonya Deville left WWE. So what happens when you have a loser leaves WWE match? The loser leaves WWE and you think, finally, I can stay on SmackDown. No, I get traded to another brand. Who really is the... Yes, someone left WWE, but you left the brand as well. That storyline that was on SmackDown just poof, disappears. And she had this momentum because she just split up with her best friend, and she had this babyface fire behind her, and you thought, right, she was in a featured storyline on SmackDown. She's got this momentum. She's just split up out of a tag team with her best friend, so surely she wouldn't be put straight into another tag team, right? Yes, she's traded to Monday Night Raw. She's put in a tag team with Dana Brooke, and they had no chemistry because they've never been on screen with each other ever. Suddenly, I'm in a tag team now with Dana Brooke. Why? Why not? It was bizarre. They had no chemistry, and it just felt such a departure from what she was doing previously, Mandy Rose. She was, this sort of goddess kind of figure, and she had a good entrance, she had a good character, and now she'd come out, she was just all smile and posing, and it just didn't make any sense. The only positive you could have got out of it is, well, it's a tag team for the women's tag team division because there aren't that many, but again, it never did anything for me. Anything. It was boring. And again, why would she go straight into a tag team when she just split up from a tag team which was with her best friend? It was like the Peyton Royce thing, wasn't it? She splits up with Billie Kay, so surely she won't go back into a tag team, right? We're going to put you in a tag team with Lacey Evans. We're going to put you in a lesser tag team. That's what it was like with Mandy Rose. It made zero sense. And she did nothing. Again, she was just there. Yes, she might have opportunities for the Women's Tag Team Championships. At this point, that means nothing. And again, the most memorable thing she did was fall over at WrestleMania this year, which they edited out of the network on Peacock, yet they hyped it up on Raw for like 3 or 4 weeks afterwards, because that works. So this is the best thing for her because she needs something. She needs something right now because she's been doing nothing. And again, there's this weird reaction on social media to this of, I can't believe it seems so last minute. You're surprised WWE is doing stuff that's last minute? That's what they do. They are just living chaos. That's how their production, that's how their writing team, that's how their creative team works. And people are really up in arms of, I can't believe they split up the Mandy Rose Dana Brooke tag team. Seriously? Of all the things to complain about in WWE, you're upset because they split up Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke? And people go, well, it was in the middle of a women's tag team championship feud with Natalya and Tamina. Are you listening to yourself? Who cares? Seriously, who cares about any of that? Because the writing team don't, the creative doesn't. Maybe going back to NXT would be a bad thing because at least they've got a women's tag team division that actually competes for the championships there, actually has tag teams. There are no tag teams pretty much now on the WWE roster, so it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And as far as Aliyah on Raw, fresh faces, I don't have a problem with it. Maybe it's someone else for Charlotte Flair to beat. I mean, I joke, but let's be honest, that's probably not out of the realm of reality there, is it? So time will tell. It's an interesting situation right now at WWE because there is such a state of flux, considering that they're going back on the road and talent needs to be caught up because the rosters are paper thin, and there's all so much going on right at the same time. And that can't be healthy for WWE. going back on the road, going back to a touring schedule. The ratings are down anyway. They're gambling on the ratings going up with fans returning. At the same time, they're cutting like half the roster because of these budget cuts, because they've hoarded talent for so long, and there's just this massive state of flux now where the rosters, they're unbalanced and they're bare, and in certain divisions there's nobody there and it's the same matches over and over and over again, but at the same time they've got to provide something fresh because they've got to sell tickets. It's just a really strange time in WWE right now, and it just seems a big mess, a really big mess. And you talk about budget cuts as a way to trim the fat and to reduce overheads and all that kind of stuff, but it feels more chaotic than ever right now in WWE, and that says a lot for a company that just at the moment, for the last few years, certainly just thrives off chaos. There is no long-term plan ever with WWE, and it certainly feels like that right now. So it's fascinating, there's no doubt about it, but it's still very, very strange. Let's talk about NXT and the ratings, because the ratings actually have improved for NXT this week, and they'll probably be quite happy with this, because Tuesday's live edition of NXT drew 705,000 viewers on the USA Network. This is according to Nielsen via Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics. Now, this is up 7.8% from last week's Great American Bash episode, which drew 654,000 viewers. Now, Tuesday's NXT special drew a 0.19 rating in the key 18 to 49 demographic. This is up 5.6% from last week's 0.18 rating in the key demo. This 0.19 rating represents 245,000 viewers in that key 18 to 49 demo, which is up 5.6% from the 200,032. I'll get there in the end. And the 18 to 49 viewers in last week's 0.18 key demo. So this week's NXT drew the best viewers since the May 4th episode. That show did not go up against any major NBA competition, as last week's Great American Bash special did. This week's NXT viewership was up 7.8% from last week, and as I mentioned, the 18 to 49 demo was up 5.6%. Look, they'll be happy. They'll be happy with that. I think, again, looking at year on year, because it's important to do this, this week's NXT viewership was down 11.73%. from the episode that aired a year ago, and the key 1849 demo, that was down 35.71% from the episode that aired a year ago. That episode went head-to-head with AEW Dynamite, and it's still down 11% in viewership and down over 35% in the key demo. So, again, I know I say this every week when we talk about NXT and the ratings and all that kind of stuff. Still, they'll be happy with 705,000 viewers this week. They'll say, see, look how well we're doing, but in reality, what's the difference between them being on a Tuesday and them being on a Wednesday? Nothing. They've got no competition from a pro wrestling show on a Tuesday night, and still they're struggling, which, as I mentioned, every single week at this point goes to show those viewership bases of AEW Dynamite and NXT are two totally different viewership bases, and it's almost like, frankly, none of that AEW audience has any interest in watching NXT. None. Even with the talent they've got on that show, even with a Samoa Joe, even with a Karrion Kross, they have no interest. I would say it's very alarming. Very alarming. Not that the 10% of the viewership being down year on year, that's probably around the average with television in general. The concern for them must be that your key 18 to 49 demographic, the demo that the television networks and the advertising companies truly care about, the fact that's down 35%. Goes to show that target audience is less interested than ever. And they're meant to be more interested because they don't have the competition. They don't have the alternative to switch to. They don't go, well, I'm not going to... the only reason I'm not watching NXT is because I've got Dynamite on the Wednesday. That doesn't exist anymore. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So it's very interesting. Very interesting. And I don't know what the quick fix is for NXT anymore. I really don't. It's a fine program, but it doesn't feel must-see television. Cross versus Joe, I think, is very exciting for TakeOver. But, again, you do have to sort of question. Does it feel like must-see television? Not really. Not really. And that's ultimately probably its biggest fault. Let's talk about new sets. We've spoken about this a few times over the course of the last few months, and it has been confirmed by WWE's Chief Brand Officer, Stephanie McMahon. She has confirmed that a new SmackDown set will be revealed on Friday night on Fox. Now, it had been previously reported that new Raw and SmackDown sets were being worked on, and they would be revealed when the company returned to the road for touring later this year. Well, McMahon spoke to Michael Law of Forbes and confirmed that a new set design will be used for SmackDown this Friday night when SmackDown airs live from the Toyota Motor Center in Houston, Texas. Now, it was noted that the new WWE sets will utilize more digital and augmented reality integrations, whatever that means. Superstar entrances will be more dynamic and captivating thanks to a higher resolution set used for the Titantrons. This will result in a more theatrical presentation. So this is no real new news here, because this has been widely reported. I think Andrew Zarian was first to report of the Mat Men podcast. Like I said a couple of times before, the biggest shame when it comes to these Raw and SmackDown sets is that they really didn't see the light of day that long. You know, the Raw and SmackDown sets, the new distinct sets that they had, debuted in October of 2019, which of course now is a long time ago. But when you think that WWE moved to, the pandemic hit in March of 2020, and they moved to those performance center, those empty arena shows, and eventually the Thunderdome later that year, you're talking about October, November, December, January, February, March. We're talking about only 6 months of having these sets being used. And I'm a fan of custom sets. I'm a fan of Raw and SmackDown looking different. Part of the problem with the Thunderdome was the problem with these Universal sets in the first place, is that they just switched to a different graphic and changed the color of the ropes. And they say, look, Raw's different to SmackDown. See, they've got different graphics. And it's not like that. That should have a completely different presentation, a completely different setup, a completely different set. It doesn't fix the issues creatively for either show, but at least it's a different presentation, and it makes you feel like you're watching something different, not just a continuation of the show that you watched on Monday or Friday. So I commended WWE for doing those sets. I liked the old SmackDown one. It reminded me of kind of the old Backlash vibe with the pincers. Wasn't a massive fan of the Raw set, the whole, skateboard thing. That wasn't for me, but I did appreciate them trying to do something different. But Stephanie McMahon confirms that indeed there are new sets coming, beginning with SmackDown on Friday. Sheamus has actually announced that he's engaged. The United States champion Sheamus is now engaged to be married. Sheamus's partner Isabella Ravella took to Instagram this week and announced the engagement. It looks like the Celtic warrior popped the question on the cliffs of Moher in Ireland this past week. So previous reports have indicated that Isabella was a fan of Sheamus before they were involved romantically, beginning several years back. There is said to be an age gap of almost 19 years between the two. There's no word yet on when Sheamus and Isabella will tie the knot, but of course, once we find out, we will keep you updated here on the channel. She posted multiple photos of them on Instagram after Sheamus popped the question to his partner. Obviously, we pass on our congratulations. Very big congratulations to Sheamus retaining the United States Championship and getting engaged in the same week. You can't get much better than that, can you? Finally, NXT is moving to SciFi briefly. Don't get worried, USA Network aren't too tired on yet. It's still NBC Universal, so it's all under the same company. But NXT is scheduled to be bumped from the USA Network by the coverage of the Olympics later this month. Of course, the Olympics start in a couple of weeks' time. NBC Universal's broadcast schedule for the Olympics currently shows that the USA Network will be airing coverage of the games on Tuesday, July 27. NXT will air on SciFi that night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time instead of USA Network. This is according to PW Insider. Now, these shows will not be live, it must be stated. These shows will be taped. In an update, this is reported by Fightful Select. Word is now that the July 27 NXT show on SciFi will be taped ahead of time. The current plan is to hold a double taping next week, with the July 20 episode and July 27 episode being filmed. The tapings are scheduled to be held next Tuesday, July 20 and Wednesday, July 21 from the Capitol Wrestling Center at the Performance Center in Orlando. Again, these will probably include these breakout tournaments. It will feature Xia Li challenging Raquel Gonzalez for the Women's Championship as well. So that's the situation. It's also been indicated by PW Insider that the July 27 and August 3 NXT episodes will be taped next Wednesday as well. As I mentioned, it's looking like NXT is going to tape a big block of programming because they're going to be bumped because of the Olympics. Look, they happen every 4 years or 5 years in this case. It's just one of those things. We spoke about the ratings though earlier on. It's going to be interesting to see what happens knowing that NXT is taped, knowing that it's on a different channel. How bad are the ratings going to be? That certainly is going to be interesting to see as well. But as always, guys, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of the WWE news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community. Drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. It really does help us out here on YouTube. Go to the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or having come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.